When I came back from my business trip, I found my daughter's mother-in-law sleeping in my bed. My own room smelled like her perfume. I didn't scream. I smiled. The next morning, I walked into the bank with proof of every lie they'd told. That was the moment my quiet war began. When I pulled up to my house in West Garfield Park that evening, the sky was just beginning to blush. The maple tree my late husband and I planted stood taller than the roof now, its roots reaching into every crack of the sidewalk. My suitcase rattled behind me, bumping over each line I'd walked for nearly 40 years. I could already smell the faint memory of gumbo that had soaked into the kitchen walls, that warm, peppery scent that always said, "You're home, girl." I smiled, tired but grateful, ready to settle into my quiet evening. The mailbox overflowed with flyers, and I chuckled. Mr. Whitaker. Next door still kept his Motown radio loud enough for the block. "Home, sweet home," I whispered. But halfway up the stairs, something shifted. There was a smell I didn't recognize. Lavender, too floral, too foreign. My perfume had always been sandalwood and orange peel. I frowned, gripping the rail as a soft television hum slipped through the hallway. Not my channel, not my volume. My heart thumped once, hard, and I told myself, probably Clarabelle visiting. Maybe she's tired. But my bedroom door, half closed with light leaking through the crack, told me otherwise. I pushed it open. Miriam Voss, Clarabelle's mother-in-law, lay across my bed like she'd earned it. Her head rested on my pillow, a silk scarf wrapped around her curls. The quilt my husband made after his second heart surgery was pulled up to her chin. My dresser was cluttered with jars of heavy cream and a monogrammed bag that read, MV. The closet doors were open, my blazers pushed aside for a floral housecoat I'd never wear. And there, on my nightstand, my husband's Bible sat beneath a sweating glass of water. The photograph of us on our wedding day was turned face down. My knees went weak. I whispered my name, Odessa, to remind myself I existed in this space. The air smelled like intrusion, thick and sweet. I stepped back into the hall, pulse quickening. That's when Clarabelle appeared, her little boy on her hip, surprise flickering across her face before she masked it with a smile. "Mama Odessa," she said softly. "Miriam just needed a place to rest. Don't make this bigger than it is." I swallowed my anger. "This is my room," I said. "My husband built that headboard with his own hands." Miriam rose, tying the sash of my robe as if she'd always worn it. "Baby, I needed comfort," she said smoothly. "Be generous." I felt heat rush into my face. She reached over and set the photo of my husband aside again, like clearing a plate. Clarabelle shifted the baby and looked at me with that practiced smile I'd seen before. "If you don't like it," she said, "you can leave. We pay the utilities now." Her words hit like stones. Leave. Utilities. I stared at her, at the walls my husband painted, at the narrow hallway that suddenly felt like a trap. I remembered the papers I'd signed after Michael's funeral, giving them temporary access to help with bills. Temporary? They'd made it sound like kindness. I exhaled through my nose, calm as Sunday prayer. "I'll get my suitcase," I said quietly. She blinked, maybe expecting a fight, but I'd already decided. I wouldn't raise my voice, I'd raise the paperwork. Downstairs. I rolled my suitcase past the family photos, my son's kindergarten grin, his graduation cap. Every face seemed to watch me, silent witnesses. Outside, I texted Amos Creed, my attorney. "Need eviction served." Within a minute, he replied, "On my way." At a modest hotel downtown, I booked a room and called my neighbor, Rowena. Ro, go upstairs, film my bedroom, timestamp everything. She didn't ask why, she just said, got it. I opened my laptop, pulled up my mortgage statement, property title, utility bills, all in my name. I filed copies in a new folder labeled 24HR. The next evening, the doorbell rang back home. Clarabelle answered, face drawn. A man in a navy jacket handed her a manila envelope. Evening, ma'am, he said politely. You have 24 hours to vacate, per the owner of record, Odessa Marrow. I didn't have to say a word. My name said it for me. The legal seal caught the porch light, and behind it, on the nightstand, the photo of my husband reflected the officer's badge in the glass. I checked into the South Loop Hotel with one carry-on, my purse, and the quiet resolve of a woman who'd stopped asking for fairness. The clerk handed me a key card and smiled like I was just another traveler. I wanted to tell her, I'm not running, I'm regrouping. Instead, I nodded, climbed the stairs, and let the door close behind me. My phone glowed on the nightstand, emails from my attorney, Amos Creed, confirmation that the 24-hour notice had been served. I opened the folder on my laptop, titled Deed, Mortgage Statement, Tax Bill, all still bearing my name. I scrolled through utility dashboards, ComEd, People's Gas, Water, and took screenshots, adding timestamps. Clarabelle's temporary access form from the funeral sat among them, her promise to vacate when ready. I saved everything twice, cloud and drive. Before lying down, I whispered, Lord, tie my hands to patience and my mind to proof. It was near midnight when my phone pinged again. Doorbell cam alert. I swiped it open and froze. A handyman stood at my porch, drill in hand. Behind him, Clarabelle whispered something sharp, and Miriam held a plastic bag filled with shiny new locks. The metallic whine of the drill cut through the feed. I hit record, exported the clip, and tagged it with the exact time. My fingers trembled, but never missed a beat. I called the police non-emergency line. Steady as stone. I'm reporting a potential illegal lock change at my residence. I said, I have live footage. The dispatcher thanked me, promised a report, and scheduled a civil standby for morning. I hung up and muttered to myself, not my fist, my facts. By morning, the sky over Chicago was pearl gray. I met Amos at the curb with coffee cups in hand. A young officer joined us. Polite and procedural. Miss Bree, Marrow, we're just here to make sure it stays civil. Rowena arrived with her phone recording, catching every frame of my porch, the scuffs around the deadbolt, the handyman's drill marks. When I tried my key, it turned loose, but still mine. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and defiance. Amos narrated for the camera, heirloom quilt, present Bible, moved, jewelry case, untouched. Every object told its story. Relief brushed against grief like two strangers passing in a hall. Clarabelle arrived moments later, hair wrapped, tablet in hand. We switched the utilities last night, she said, chin high. This is financial abuse, and we won't be bullied. I opened my own phone, showing her my live account balance. Still in my name, I said. Calm as prayer. Amos nodded toward her screen. Pending request isn't transfer, he said. That's attempted fraud. She sneered, muttering, You just can't let go. Miriam chimed in, voice trembling with theater. We're family. She's punishing us. The sight of my robe on her shoulders nearly undid me, but I kept my tone level. Kindness, I told her, is not the same as surrender. When the officer stepped aside to make a note, Clarabelle's phone buzzed with a burst of messages. Within minutes, Rowena forwarded me screenshots, a neighborhood moms group thread labeling me unstable, forgetful, unsafe around children. I stared at my reflection in the phone screen, gray hair, steady eyes. So this is the play, I said quietly. I saved every image, tagged every timestamp. Amos's voice stayed calm. Document, don't engage. I met Clarabelle's eyes. You're entitled to courtesy, not my identity. The officer, perhaps sensing the shift, straightened his stance. Amos drafted a short agreement, 30 days of prepaid storage, movers lined up, a small cashier's check for good faith. You leave peacefully. You keep your dignity, he said. Clarabelle smiled thinly, pretending reason. I'll agree, she said, but I need time alone in the bedroom to pack my personal things. My laughter came out low, humorless. The dining room will do, I said. You can pack with witnesses present, Miriam murmured about elder cruelty. I answered once, respecting yourself isn't cruelty. Then Amos cast the video from my doorbell camera onto the television. The handyman's face, the drill's whir, Miriam's bag of locks, it all played out in silence. The officer watched, jaw tightening. This is evidence, he said. No more tampering. I walked to my safe, withdrew a notarized affidavit, and placed it beside the Bible Miriam had displaced. The photo of my husband, upright again, watched over the table. Clarabelle's mouth tightened to a fine white line. I said nothing more. The silence worked better than any sermon. Finally, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. We have a lease, she declared. Amos took it, scanned the shaky signature. The middle initial was wrong. The parcel number was wrong. The handwriting, slanted and unsure, wasn't mine. The officer sighed. If this goes to court, the judge decides. But the 24-hour notice still stands. I leaned back, voice even as a metronome. Then we let the court read our handwriting. I photographed the so-called lease front and back, zooming in on the printer dots. Clarabelle clutched it like scripture, but her hand shook. As the morning sun broke through the blinds, my phone buzzed again. A bank alert flashed across the screen. Home equity line, access attempt declined. My throat went dry. This wasn't just about my room anymore. It was about the deed, the debt, and the story they meant to steal. By 11 that morning, I was back at my credit union, the same one my husband and I had joined the year we bought the house. The lobby smelled of lemon polish and quiet nerves. I told the teller, I need to speak to the fraud department. Now. Within minutes. I was seated across from a young woman named Dana, who tapped through my account like a pianist. I said clearly, put a hard freeze on my home equity line. No exceptions. She frowned as the screen refreshed. Someone tried to draw $25,000, she murmured. Same device ID as the login for your online banking, but from a different IP range. My stomach tightened, but I stayed calm. Print everything, I said. She slid me a report showing timestamps, location, and device fingerprint. I added it to my folder. When Amos joined by speakerphone, he asked the bank to notarize an affidavit confirming the attempt. I signed without shaking. Betrayal hurt, but competence steadied me. We moved next door to the notary desk with the forged lease photo printed beside my real deed. Amos drew circles around the errors, the wrong middle initial, parcel ID from before Michael passed, mismatched fonts between pages. Dana tilted a magnifier lamp over the sheet. See those yellow dots? She said. That's printer tracking. Each printer leaves a pattern like a fingerprint. We took photos of the dots and labeled the PDF Lease Forensics V1. My anger cooled into something heavier, resolve. I laid out the timeline on paper, Michael's funeral, Clarabelle's temporary access form, and then this supposed lease dated 3 weeks later. Impossible. Every lie now had a date, a file, and a name attached. just after noon. Rowena's text came through. Screenshots of the handyman's messages. His thread with Clarabelle read, "Lock's ready. She won't get back in." The timestamp matched the night I saw the drill on my porch. I exported the chat to PDF, hashing the file like Amos taught me. Then I texted Clarabelle myself, short, factual. "This is illegal self-help. Please stop. See attached Illinois statute." She replied, "You left. We kept it safe." I added her words to my evidence folder. "Every sentence tells on itself," Amos said through the line. By early afternoon, 2 officers met us again for a second civil standby. This time I greeted them on my porch, deed copy in hand. "I'm here to secure personal items and legal papers," I told them. Clarabelle tried to waive the fake lease again, but the senior officer cut in. "That'll be for court, ma'am. The 24-hour notice remains valid." I nodded, setting my keys and title folder on the table. Ownership visible, indisputable. Clarabelle's voice turned syrupy. "I just need privacy to pack my things," she said, eyeing the hallway toward my bedroom. I smiled faintly. "You can pack in the dining room, with witnesses present." Miriam huffed, clutching her robe tighter. "You're bullying elders," she snapped. The younger officer stepped between us. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." I kept mine steady. "I'm protecting my home, not picking a fight." Amos slid a document across the table. A move-out plan, prepaid storage, cashier's check for goodwill, and a no defamation clause. Clarabelle hesitated, pen hovering, then set it down. "I'll think about it," she said. "Take your time," I replied, glancing at my watch. But the clock's not waiting. As the officers wrapped up their report, I watched the house breathe like a living thing, walls that held laughter, now echoing paperwork and police voices. My phone buzzed again. A new notification flashed. Password reset request. Cook County recorder account. My pulse skipped. Someone wasn't done yet. I looked up, meeting Clarabelle's eyes across the room. "Seems someone's trying to rewrite my story," I said softly. "But they're about to find out. I still hold the pen." By mid-afternoon, I was standing under the brass letters of the Cook County Recorder's office, my phone still flashing the reset alert. The glass doors hissed open. The air smelled of toner and old folders. I handed the clerk my ID and the screenshot. "Someone just tried to change my deed," I said. She looked up, eyebrows lifting. "We'll check the audit trail." Within minutes, she printed a log, failed login from a burner email, traced to a flagged IP range in Peoria. I asked for everything tied to my parcel number to be sealed under investigation. "Lock it all down," I said. Amos joined me at the counter, his tone firm but polite. We set up enhanced title lock. Any filing now required in-person ID and my wet signature. No exceptions. My voice stayed even. If someone's going to steal my house, they'll have to look me in the eye to do it. The clerk asked for trusted contacts. I listed Amos and my bank officer. We rerouted 2-factor codes to my landline and a physical token key. One I slipped onto my keychain beside Michael's old house key. She printed a bright yellow slip, filing hold owner verification required, and stapled it to my record. For the first time that week, I breathed like air had weight again. Fear didn't vanish, but it had somewhere to stand. Amos requested a deeper check on any recent e-notary sessions linked to my parcel. The clerk frowned at her monitor. "There was one yesterday," she said, "but the selfie doesn't match your DMV photo." She tilted the screen toward us, a blurry image of someone wearing a cheap wig, my name typed beneath. "That's not me," I said, the words dry in my throat. "I know," she replied. "The system flagged it. The notary didn't complete live presence verification and used expired identity questions." Amos took notes, his pen scratching quick as thought. We filed a defective acknowledgement affidavit to nullify any record from that session. I signed. The clerk notarized. The paper clicked into the scanner, so I asked her to tag my property with "No remote online notarization accepted." She nodded. From now on, they'll need your ink, not a webcam. In the hallway, fluorescent lights hummed like judgment. Clarabelle appeared with Miriam at her elbow, both dressed as though they'd been waiting for applause. Clarabelle waved the same fake, lease, voice sharp. "We're here to record this. I have rights." The supervisor, a tall woman in bifocals, stepped between us. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." Amos gestured calmly. "The parcel ID on that document is invalid, and the notary stamp is dated on a Sunday." Clarabelle's jaw tightened. "She promised we could stay." She snapped. I answered quietly, "Promises aren't property transfers." The supervisor nodded, issuing a printed memo. "Non-recordable document. Refused." The stamp thudded down like punctuation to an argument I never needed to raise my tone for. By the time we reached the house again, the sun was dropping behind the L tracks. The same patrol unit waited out front. "Back again. Ms. Marrow?" one officer asked. "Afraid so," I said, handing him my new documents. He reviewed the recorder's affidavit and my bank's fraud notice, then added a supplemental report. "Attempted title tampering documented," he said for his body cam. I restated the rules slowly. Supervised pack-out only. No room access, no overnight guests. The officer repeated it verbatim, loud enough for Clarabelle and Miriam to hear. Clarabelle crossed her arms. "You abandoned the home." The officer shook his head. "Owner presence is established. That doesn't apply." I marked a deadline, Sunday, 10 a.m. For keys returned, officer's initials sealing it. Inside, I turned my dining table into a command post, each item photographed, tagged, labeled with QR codes. Amos typed the final email. "Cease and desist on online impersonation. Read receipt enabled," Miriam muttered. "We'll call the county about elder bullying." I smiled. "Please do. Take the officer's card while you're at it." We boxed their personal things, neutral bins, one padlock, one receipt, courtesy without surrender. As Amos left, he said, "You built a wall of paper no one can climb." I nodded. Paper speaks louder than panic. The squad car pulled away, its lights fading against the dusk. I locked the door behind me, breath steadying. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Department of Children and Family Services," the voice said. "We received a welfare complaint, an elderly woman alone in an unsafe home." I closed my eyes, counted to 3, then answered, "Ma'am, I'm perfectly lucid, and I have officers and counsel on record. Who sent you?" The knock came soft but official, 3 taps. Pause, 1 more. When I opened the door, a young woman in a navy DCFS jacket stood on my porch, her clipboard hugged to her chest. "Good evening, ma'am," she said. "We received a welfare concern for a senior resident at this address." Her tone was polite but watchful, the kind you use when you expect a mess behind the door. I smiled. "You're right on time," I told her, stepping aside. "Officers are still out front if you'd like to confirm I'm not a headline waiting to happen." Through the window, she could see the squad car lights fading down the block, the officers finishing paperwork. "Would you like tea?" I asked, calm as a church usher. She blinked, surprised. "Yes, ma'am." Inside, she took in my living room, the neat stacks of files on the table, fresh flowers on the mantel, the faint gospel hum from the radio. "We received a complaint," she said softly, alleging confusion, possible self-neglect, maybe coercion. I stirred her tea and handed it over. "I keep records, not clutter," I said evenly. "You're welcome to inspect anything you need." She glanced around, her pen stalling as her eyes landed on the color-coded binders, mortgage papers, medical logs, police reports, each tab labeled by date and witness. She smiled faintly. "You're organized," I chuckled. "That's how I keep my sanity and my house." We walked through the kitchen together. She opened the fridge. Fresh produce, labeled leftovers. My meds were sorted in a 7-day box. My doctor's appointments circled neatly on the wall calendar. Just then, Rowena came trotting up the steps, her scarf flapping like a flag. "She walks 2 miles every morning," she said brightly. "Don't let that cane fool you." The worker grinned, jotting notes. She tested smoke detectors, turned the tap, checked mail, every detail quietly undoing the lie. My late husband's photo watched from the counter, steady as ever. "My husband served 30 years, I said softly. "His pension keeps me steady, and I volunteer helping other seniors get their wills in order." The worker looked up from her checklist. "You're the most documented woman I've ever met." I smiled. "That's how I survive my own family." Her tone shifted as she flipped the intake sheet. "Caller listed herself as your daughter-in-law, Clarabelle Knox." My chest tightened, but I kept my voice level. "She's not my daughter-in-law," I said. "She's my son's ex-girlfriend, never married or never legal." I reached for the binder marked probate and lease forensics, opened it to notarized pages showing the property transfer and the false lease. Her eyebrows lifted. "You have more evidence than most county offices," she muttered. "False elder endangerment reports are civil offenses." Rowena crossed her arms. "Child. Some folks call the state when they can't win in daylight." The worker almost laughed, then sighed. "We get too many of these," she said. I printed the police report and the recorder's affidavit from my laptop right in front of her, slid them across the table. "Here," I said, "everything tied to their harassment." She clipped the pages into her file. "This will be logged as retaliation under the Elder Abuse Clause," she said firmly. Amos called just then, his voice calm on speaker. "Please note that the welfare call coincides with an active eviction countdown," he said. She nodded, scribbling. "No cause for continued investigation," she said at last, closing her folder with a sharp snap. "We'll flag the caller ID for review." She paused, meeting my eyes. "You're the kind of case that reminds me why this job matters." As dusk deepened, the hum of the porch light filled the silence. Rowena rested a hand on my shoulder. "They tried to paint you weak, but you showed them steel," she said. I exhaled, the knot in my chest finally loosening. "They used the state to shame me," I murmured. "I'll use the truth to end them." I texted Amos, all cleared. She saw everything. His reply came quick, perfect. "DCFS report helps our motion." I snapped a photo of the worker's card, filed it under welfare visit resolved. The house felt solid again, the kind of quiet that follows a storm that didn't win. Then my phone buzzed with a new message from the Cook County Courthouse. "Emergency motion to stay eviction, filed by Clarabelle Knox." I stared at the glow of the screen, lips curling into a thin smile. "If she wants a courtroom," I whispered, "she'll finally get to see what receipts look like under oath." The morning sun bounced off the steel of the Daily Center as I stepped through security. One tote, one binder, one pen. Travel light. Think heavy. I whispered to myself. Amos Creed was already waiting by the escalators, his suit pressed, eyes calm. "We argue facts, not feelings," he said. I nodded. "Receipts over rumors." Clarabelle swept in 10 minutes late, wrapped in perfume and attitude, her cousin filming like she was entering an award show. I caught the clerk's raised brow, the bailiff's slow exhale. I'd been in enough meetings to know. First impressions stick harder than ink. We rode the elevator in silence, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to peace. This wasn't chaos anymore. It was chess. Their side went first. Clarabelle's lawyer stood tall and smooth, painting me as confused, inconsistent, potentially unsafe. He gestured dramatically at the air. My clients provided care. They only seek stability. He called my house multi-resident, my kindness shared occupancy. I almost laughed. The judge didn't. His eyebrows rose once, at elderly family, then again at unpaid contributions. Amos didn't interrupt. He just wrote down every timestamp. I sat still, hands folded, remembering every boardroom where men used that same syrupy tone to make women sound small. When the judge finally asked, "Do you have evidence of your claims?" The attorney shuffled his papers like he was searching for courage. Then Amos rose. "Defense Exhibit A," he began, voice steady. "Department of Children and Family Services closure letter. No findings, no concerns." He passed the letter with the embossed seal, followed by police reports, mortgage statements, utility bills, medication logs, all tagged, dated, signed. The judge studied the seal, nodded once. Clarabelle's lawyer's voice faltered. "Your Honor, we, request additional discovery." The judge didn't look up. "You had discovery. You brought speculation." I met the moment head on. "Your Honor," I said evenly, "I manage my home and my life." It wasn't loud, but it landed. Amos tapped the tablet next. "Defense Exhibit B, doorbell and hallway camera footage." The bailiff dimmed the lights. On screen, Clarabelle unlocking my door, ushering Miriam inside, the lavender robe tossed onto my chair, the audio cut clear and sharp. Clarabelle's voice rang out. "She needs comfort. If you don't like it, you can leave." A few jurors waiting for other cases gasped under their breath. Even the cousin lowered her phone. "Play it again," the judge said. We did, twice. By the second time, Clarabelle's shoulders sagged. The lie had shape now, and it wasn't mine. Amos wasn't done. Exhibit C, so-called lease addendum. He projected the document beside my verified bank signature. The differences glared, wrong loops, uneven strokes, mismatched initials. Forgery indicators include inconsistent ink age and a missing notary entry. The judge asked, "Who drafted this?" Silence. Then Clarabelle whispered, "It was just a template." The room froze. Amos said, "We move for sanctions for attempted fraud upon the court." Clarabelle's lawyer looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. The judge straightened his papers. "Motion to stay is denied, with prejudice." His gavel struck once, crisp as thunder. "Respondents will vacate within 24 hours. Cease harassment. No further false reports." He paused, glancing at Clarabelle. "This court will not be weaponized for family drama." Her cousin's phone slipped from her lap. The judge added, "Protective relief granted. No entry or contact at petitioner's residence without counsel coordination." Clarabelle muttered, "This isn't over." The bailiff stepped forward. "Ma'am." She sat down. The judge leaned back. Court adjourned. Sanctions hearing to be scheduled. DCFS liaison notified of misuse. Amos packed our binder, calm as ever. I looked at the empty seats behind Clarabelle, then at the gavel resting still. Funny thing about paperwork, and I murmured, it doesn't care who shouts louder. We stepped into the marble hallway, light bouncing off the terrazzo. Amos's phone buzzed. He frowned, reading the alert. Fraud detection system just flagged another online deed transfer attempt. he said quietly. I tightened my scarf, smiled thinly. Looks like they lost in daylight, I said. So now they're trying the dark. The elevator doors had barely closed behind us when Amos's phone chimed, a sharp electronic ping that made both of us stop mid-stride. The screen glowed, recorder alert. Unauthorized deed access. For a moment, the hum of the courthouse fell away. Already, I whispered. He turned the screen so I could read. My parcel number flashed red beside a timestamp, 10:57 a.m., not even an hour after the judge's ruling. They didn't wait, I said, my voice low. Amos's jaw tightened. Desperation moves fastest after exposure. Within minutes, he forwarded the forensic snapshot to the court clerk and the bank's fraud division. I called my insurer's hotline, reading out the log number while Amos printed the hash report from his tablet. We'll show them Integrity leaves fingerprints, too, I murmured, breathing slow to steady the pulse behind my ribs. By noon, Amos had already triangulated the login attempt. Cafe Wi-Fi on Madison, he said. Somebody used a public signal. Sloppy. He requested the security footage from the cafe owner, who recognized Clarabelle's cousin immediately from earlier local coverage. My phone buzzed again. Bank fraud unit confirming an attempted e-signature verification using an outdated photo from my old driver's license. They're recycling stolen data, Amos muttered, typing fast. I drafted an email to the DCFS liaison and copied the judge's assistant. Subject line, pattern of continuing harassment. Amos built a fresh file, Recorder Packet B, Cyber Edition. Watching him stack screenshots and timestamp chains, I felt the anger inside me cooling into something colder, more exact. They underestimated how modern grandmothers use two-factor authentication, he said, half smiling. They sure did. I replied. By dusk, the story had escaped the courthouse walls. The evening news opened with my case. Cook County judge denies stay. Fraudulent lease allegations surface. My phone lit up with messages. Reporters wanted quotes. I declined the interviews but sent a statement instead. Integrity is the quietest form of self-defense. Rowena texted me a photo of my porch. Someone had left flowers and a note. You inspire us. Miss Odessa. Clarabelle's online boutique. However, turned into a battlefield. Screenshots of court filings flooded her review page. Amos called, his tone practical. Public opinion helps, but keep your voice clean. We play the long game. I nodded. Always have. He chuckled. I'll draft the motion for sanctions tonight. Outside, the news anchor's voice echoed faintly from a neighbor's TV, narrating my story to people I'd never met. At 1:13 a.m., my house phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. They froze my accounts. Clarabelle's voice quivered through static. You destroyed my life. I sat upright, calm. You did that when you forged my name. Silence hung between us. Then a sob. I just wanted stability for my mother, she said. You confuse comfort with conquest. I answered softly. The line clicked. Dead. I stared at the receiver for a long moment, then opened my journal. Mercy and justice often share the same silence. I wrote. Moments later, a text from Amos arrived. Keep record of that call. Could matter later. I'd already logged it with the time, date, and duration, habit. Paper doesn't forget. Morning came with the scent of coffee and rain. At the church fellowship hall, I led a small workshop for seniors, something I'd planned months ago, now strangely prophetic. They'll call you forgetful, I said to the circle of gray heads. They'll offer help just to learn your passwords. Don't let courtesy replace caution. Rowena filmed discreetly from the back. Keep your paperwork, your passwords, your peace. I concluded. Laughter rippled through the room, soft but fierce. That clip later traveled far, captioned Elder Power, How Miss Odessa Beat a Deed Scam. Amos sat quietly in the last row, holding a new envelope, the court's confirmation of our sanctions hearing. When I finished, he met my eye and mouthed, "It's done." Tuesday dawned bright. I watered my roses in silence, the earth cool beneath my slippers. A courier approached with certified mail, court order, motion struck from record. I signed, tore the receipt, and taped the envelope flap inside my binder. One more proof in the archive of my endurance. The church bell tolled 9 times. I whispered. The hardest victories are the quiet ones. Amos called minutes later. We won both legally and morally, he said. Yes, I replied, but the moral part cost more breath. We laughed, tired but light. When I finally sat down, sunlight pooled across my desk, glinting on the silver in my hair. My binder lay open, tabs neat, pages sealed with calm. Then my laptop chimed, a new email sliding across the screen. Settlement offer from Clarabelle Knox. Mediation requested. I leaned back, smiling faintly. Funny, I whispered, how people find peace only after their noise stops echoing. Clarabelle's email arrived at dawn, a tidy paragraph disguised as peace. She proposed mutual resolution, a small payout, and a sweeping non-disclosure clause. I stared at the screen, the words, mutual mistakes, glowing like bait. Amos read over my shoulder and said, "We'll go, but we don't settle secrets in private." We booked mediation for noon at a neutral downtown office. I wore courthouse black, hair pinned high, pearls from my mother. When I entered the room, I didn't need to speak. My posture did the talking. Clarabelle sat opposite me, avoiding my eyes, her young lawyer murmuring words like fresh start and moving forward. I smiled faintly. Moving forward starts with telling the truth. I placed a binder labeled pattern, not accident, on the table. The hum of the air conditioner seemed to pause. Amos opened the meeting with calm precision. He laid out the chain of deceit, the forged lease, the false welfare call, the digital fraud. "Every timestamp tells the same story," he said. Clarabelle's attorney shifted, his pen tapping the table like Morse code. I took my turn. "I won't sell my piece for hush money," I said. "If I'm to be made whole, it'll be in daylight." The phrase made Clarabelle flinch. Amos slid draft terms forward, restitution, legal fees, sanctions recommendation. "No private deal," he added. "Only a court-entered consent decree." Her counsel frowned. "That's highly public." I nodded. Good. Honesty should echo. Amos finished. "We're here to resolve, not erase." The silence that followed was dense and exacting, the sound of truth closing its fist. By afternoon, the consent decree was signed and stamped. The judge reviewed each line aloud. Clarabelle admitted to document tampering, digital interference, and harassment. Restitution ordered. Community service mandated. The eviction order reaffirmed. I declined damages beyond fees, but requested that part of her payment establish a small neighborhood elder property defense fund. The clerk blinked. "You don't want more for yourself?" I smiled. "I already have what I wanted, peace that's documented." When Amos handed me the official copy, I asked for a few extras. "For my church seniors," I said. "They'll want to see what a signature can protect." He laughed softly. "You turned a lawsuit into a life lesson." "No," I said. "I turned survival into structure." Later that evening, I met my daughter at a coffee shop in Hyde Park. She arrived tense, eyes red from something heavier than sleep. I stirred my tea. Honey, I love you. That love is steady, but steady isn't permission. She looked down, nodding. I continued. If we're going to rebuild, it starts with boundaries. Therapy, time, accountability. You don't have to earn my love, but you do have to respect it. Her voice cracked. I miss you, Mom. I reached for her hand. Then start by meaning what you say. We agreed to small steps, Sunday service together, then a month of quiet. As she left, she whispered, I'll do better. I smiled sadly. Do right. That's better than better. 2 cups remained on the table, one with a lid, one without. I stared at them a long time. The next day, church pews filled with familiar faces. Rowena introduced me to 3 seniors who'd nearly lost their homes to deed scams. Amos offered free legal hours. We unveiled the new microfund. No applause for drama, only for dignity. I spoke briefly. Keep your paperwork, your passwords, and your peace. Heads nodded, eyes bright. Someone recorded it, and by evening it had spread online. I declined every TV request but posted a plain language guide titled, How to Protect What's Yours? Later. At home, I placed the consent decree beside my late husband's folded flag in the fireproof box. 2 proofs of service, 1 military, 1 moral. As the sun dipped behind the Chicago skyline, my phone buzzed. A message from Amos. Recorder's office just flagged a cluster of identical fraud attempts, possible organized ring. I looked out at the roses, the petals gold in fading light. Then, I said softly, we're just getting started. As dusk settled over Chicago, I watched the roses sway, their shadows crossing the porch steps. My phone buzzed again, an unknown number this time. A man's voice said, Mrs. Marrow, I think they just used your name, again. I froze mid-breath. The question lingered. How deep did this ring really go?